Welcome to the High Tech Freedom Podcast. This is a podcast where we bring successful tech sales professionals, thought leaders, and entrepreneurs to share best practices, insights, and lessons learned with other tech sales professionals. As a sales professional, the more we learn, the more we earn. Once we earn it, how can we put those hard-earned commission dollars back to work to build additional income streams that will create the freedom we are all working to achieve? I'm your host, Chris Freeman. I'm a high-tech sales leader, real estate investor, and lifetime learner. All right, welcome back to the High Tech Freedom Sales Podcast. My guest today is Neil Rogers. Neil, how you doing today?
I'm great, Chris. How are you?
Oh, I could not be better. A little warm here in the Pacific Northwest, but I can't complain. I'd rather have a little bit of heat than rain.
Polar opposites. I'm at the Northeast.
Yeah, and where are you based out of, Neil?
I'm about 35 miles outside of Boston.
Okay.
It's over the border in New Hampshire.
Okay.
But Massachusetts is right there.
Got it. So we're about as far apart as possible as we possibly could be. Well, Neil, let's jump right into it. So why don't we start off with telling the audience a little bit about yourself, your background?
Well, I kind of track it along a book that I just published, and it's called Bar Tips. And the reason why, and it takes you kind of along my journey. I was born in a small town outside of Boston called Melrose, Massachusetts, one of 8 of an Irish Catholic family. And I was the 7th. So people got a little tired at that point by the time that rolled around. And I'm not saying I was forgotten, but there wasn't a lot of you know, the helicopter parenting that we do today, right? And so I started out. So I came to my mother in my senior year of high school as an example, and said, May of my senior year in high school, I said, Is there something I should be doing next year? So that shows you where we start off. And then I went off and went to did try community college, all the while working in the hospitality business at the same time for money and to pay the tuition, even though it was $500, nobody else was helping. And stayed on that, and I failed in school. I think basically because I lacked interest and drive for what I was doing. I wasn't an awful student, but my academic intelligence was not high. I probably was. I think I think my SAT scores and my class rank have one thing in common: they were both in the triple digits. So, but what I did find out is that I went from that loss to learning that what I did like was I like to serve people, and the way I found that out was I started tending bar. And my first drink that I poured, I handed it to somebody. They took a sip out of it, and they said, "Boy, that tastes pretty good." So I got that immediate feedback. So I said, "Okay, so this is cool. Maybe I've got something that I can parlay into the next gig." But I also knew I didn't want to tend bar for the rest of my life, and so I took another swing at school, and that was the hotel restaurant business. I swung and missed again, and that's when I stayed in the hospitality business. The people would say, "You're really friendly and got great interpersonal skills. You would be great at sales." Oh, okay. Maybe that's a track I should go on. So I did the school thing again. I went back on track, but now I have interest and a purpose, and I have desire. So I learned how to be good at school: show up, actively listen, take notes, ask questions, participate in class, show up at the extra hours, and do all the extra credit stuff. Lo and behold, I've become a successful student. And so I went to, so once I graduated, which took, I played the long game, graduated at 25, and I started selling right away. And I started selling in the food business. So I worked for a food distributor, and used the simple process, much like I did in school: show up, be organized, all these things. And I chipped away, and I went from, I think they gave me $150,000 territory. In 18 months, I made it 1.5 million. That's walking in and out of every kitchen in Boston and surrounding towns. And again, being organized, polite, well presented, all the simple things, all the golden rules mom told you. And then from there, I went into the athletic footwear and apparel business. So I went from, now I'm making money. I finally stopped making some money. I can finally give up my bar job on the weekends. So, because I was starving with what they were paying me, with the commissions you're making at those numbers. And I was offered a job to go work for a couple of friends, guys that I knew that were very successful selling shoes and apparel. But I went down to this total commission job. So now I'm in the entrepreneurial spirit mode.
Yeah. So 100% commission?
100% commission. And they gave me a $250,000 territory. And I used the simple things that we talk about. I talk about a lot in the book, and things that in retrospect were things that a lot of the stuff I learned behind the bar, or I honed those skills behind the bar or sharpened them. And I took a $250,000 territory and did in 4 years, I had a $10 million business. And those businesses, it's not like, they're not high ticket items. It's not a $750,000 software install,
a lot of shoes, a lot of apparel.
Yeah. And then from there, we've been in the last 27 years, my wife and I have had a swag business. So we've been in the promotional products business. We love it. I am the original guy that worked from home, and I'm the original guy with high deductibles. So when people were complaining about their $2,000 deductibles, I'd been staring down 10 grand for years. So they didn't bother me at all.
Well, that's really interesting. So you, over that career, right? Really successful. I saw in a note somewhere that there was a few years there where you were the number one rep. Your promotional company has had tremendous growth. I think I saw 240% growth. So obviously very successful. And while you're the owner, you're also, my understanding is you're the VP of sales and marketing. So you're very close to the sales side of the business. I'm curious. So based on your experience, your own direct selling, running your business today, what are you seeing that's really separating, the top sales performers, the top 10, 20% from the rest of the pack?
I think it's a repeatable process, right? So a golfer is looking for that repeatable swing. How do I take that swing each time and get the positive result? I've discovered over my lifetime, when I stay with my process, I win. And when I don't, I lose. It's really that simple. And what's your business development process? How are you filling your pipeline, and are you being creative? So one of the things I always say, persistence versus tenacity. Persistence sounds like pest for a reason. Tenacity is where you take some creativity and you do something different. So hit them in another spot. Find something different to get their attention in order for them to take that first meeting, buy that next product, do that upsell, whatever that may be. That's what I believe we've been very good at over the years, is just doing things differently, being creative, staying, we do a lot of things that are not digital. We do tangible things. This may come as a shock to you, but direct mail is up. It's doing more than it did last year. And we believe wholeheartedly in sending people things to get their attention. So I think those are the, especially now where you can barely get to see anybody. Right. So how are you going to cut through all that noise that they're getting on a television set and the radio, but mainly on their social media sites or whatever they're doing their Google searches or whatever that may be? How are you going to cut through all that? And that's what we've been. Well, as an example, we didn't lose it. It imploded. $1 million client last year. And for a company of our size, that's a significant hit, right? Well, we're chipping it away, doing our process, not panicking, staying with it, and not getting discouraged. And we're probably about halfway there.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I want to go back to that because I do ask people, guests on the show, about what's working for building pipeline. What are you seeing that's working to get meetings? And you touched on something that I've been talking about now, just with my own team, is the challenge of getting in front of people, right? Getting that meeting. They're not necessarily in the office, and you talked about sending physical letters. You talked about using promotional items. What right now, what's sort of hot and working in your promotional business where you see people using something that's getting their attention, whether it's a specific product or the way they package or present the product to somehow be creative and get a response?
Well, you can really get creative. if you're with the right people, and we are the right people. So you can get where you're designing the box that it goes in. Your full on design of your campaign is on the box. Let me take a step back before I go there. It's not always the cards, the letters, and the gifts. Have you identified who can buy what you sell? Are you wasting your time sending them? Can they? I've got these leads, and I'm following up on them, and I did my emails and whatever. Okay, great. How does that get you? If you're sending something to somebody or sending an email that there's no way on God's green earth they can buy from you or buy what you sell,
wasting your time.
You're wasting your time. So I think that's the first thing. So I think some research goes a long way, But it's really that you do it. And what we always say, 80% of perfect is just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Don't overthink it. Just get it in. I was talking to my sister-in-law the other day. And she was talking. My older brother, he's a lot more. He's not as reactive as I am. Let's say it took him almost 2 days to write a paragraph. I think it was to an insurance company or what. And I'm thinking, dude, 80% of perfect, pal. Just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, so back to answering your question though, it's like, yeah, I mean, we could, the box, the item that's in the box, but really it's about, there's this theory of 7. You may have heard it. It takes 7 significant touches in order to get somebody's attention. Now that's in my world. I don't even know what the digital world says. How many times are they going to have to see your annoying ad on Facebook before you're going to click on it? I mean, to me, it just annoys the heck out of me, and I don't do anything with it. But if somebody's gone and found an article, and it could be online, that was germane to their business, and you took the time to take your little yellow highlighter, put a handwritten note on it, and sent that, and made it dimensional, right? So throw a pen in there. You don't have to get crazy. We've got these really cool QR code pens. That what they've done is they've made the imprint area big enough so that it can adopt the QR and it's on a flat enough surface so you can get the read. And there's something that made the QR code was dead until COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Till every time you went into a restaurant, you had to break out your phone and do that.
Both the menu.
Remember that? I'm still PTSD over it. But yeah, so I mean, the fact that you do it, you're thinking at least in terms of 7 touches, and you can incorporate email and phone mail in that too, but make sure it's thematic. Mm-hmm. You're staying with the process. If one of your guys has got you folks are doing an add-on software piece or whatever that may be, and you're looking for people to adopt it and take the meeting or do the demo or whatever that may be, whatever your next step is. Well, make sure that what you're saying is thematic, at least, somewhere along that line. But and think of in terms of at least 3 to 4 dimensional pieces. Now, you've got to determine your budget on that. I mean, right. I did this for a company called Hitachi Consulting one year, and their opening silo for an engagement was $250,000. They did 10 reps. Each one had 10 hard to get intos. We did this simple campaign. I think the whole campaign, including mail, which is the biggest part about it in these things, was $10,000. They got 10 appointments of people they would never see. Who wants, so how many times are you going to leave somebody a voicemail? How many are going to send them an email? You're going to craft a more crafty email. What's it going to say? It's going to have some sort of cutesy thing in the subject line, forwarded maybe. Oh, it's forwarded. Maybe I should look at this, or some sort of other trick that they use. And I'm just not about that. I mean, we've always been about, being straight. And so
you touched on one thing there that, sending an article, highlighting it, including, you showed in the video some personalized stationery and then maybe throwing a pen or something. The challenge that I see a lot of sellers sometimes have is they're sending out the emails, but they're always asking for something, right? They're trying to get a meeting. And the value of finding some article that you just share and you highlight, and you're not asking for anything. So say, hey, I thought you might enjoy this. I noticed it's sort of similar or connects to your business in some way. You got to give something before you get something. And I think sometimes I feel bad for sellers because there's so much pressure on them to produce immediately that sometimes translates into their process in a negative way. But it's so important. Totally panicking.
They get panic stricken. If you have that, so what we say in positive activity, which is our little program that we put together, and it is in the book and it's on the website, is give it 90 days. Every day, do these things, which includes in the morning, doing a handful of things that gets your mind right. I would consider journaling, doing kind of random act of kindness, meditation. Make sure you get your body moving. Even a short walk before you open your email. Then, if you've determined who can buy what you sell, and you have a little ditty, you know what your benefit that you're gonna provide for them. You can articulate it on one sheet of paper. Then, who are those people, and how do you get them? What is your process for meeting new people? Is it just going to be farming? Man, if I get another lead campaign come to me, via email, it's like, and it's all from LinkedIn. It's scraped or whatever they call it in the world, because it says Neil P. Right. I guess we don't know each other, right?
Right.
I don't go by them.
That's why you put the P in your name in LinkedIn. That's a great filter.
So then if you have a process and a set up process, so that if you meet somebody, what happens the next day? What are you going to do? Because just because you had a cocktail with this person and they thought you were funny and they're mildly interested in what you have to say, doesn't mean they're sitting waiting by the phone for you to call or an email. So how are you going to put them in queue in your process to then build a relationship with them?
Before we jump into the topic, I wanted to let you know that we just launched a monthly drawing for one of our insulated high-tech Freedom tumblers. Now, I've been sending these out as a thank you gift to each of our guests, and the response has been great. Everyone has a full-size coffee cup, a Yeti, or whatever brand that they might use, but not everybody has the small tumbler that you can put your wine or beverage of choice in. And they're great for the deck, beach, camping, or just keeping your drink warm or cold. Now, I'm not selling these, but I am excited about them. So we decided to offer these up to the loyal podcast listeners by doing a monthly drawing. So if you're interested, go to hightechfreedom.com/mug, that's MUG, and you'll see a picture of the tumbler and you can enter. We'll just collect your name, phone number, and email. And if you do win, we'll then follow up and ask for your mailing address so we know where to send it. If you don't win, your name stays in, so you don't need to re-enter.
I mean, think about catching people on a. If somebody was to call here right now and I didn't know them, I'm not giving. Well, number one, I would never interrupt our call, but I would never give them the time of day. I said, you know what? Find a more creative way to get a hold of me. Don't catch me off guard. I'm doing other things. No way to start a relationship, in my view.
Yeah.
So if you've got a process of, how are you going to follow up from newly met? How are you going to follow? Does everybody in your family and friends, they all know what you do, right? Those are the people you know. Then you have the people you meet. And then maybe the worst choice is the people you're going to buy, right? But the people you meet can also be the people who have been referred to you. Mm-hmm. Once again, just because Chris likes Neil and says, Neil, this is a great person for you to talk to at our company. I've loved what you had to say today. Well, guess what? I'm not saying Joan is going to be sitting because Chris said so. Is going to be my respect for her says, no, I need to do better. She gets my promo kit. We follow up via email. We leave a voicemail if possible. We then grab your logo. We start making samples up. No charge to Joan. And this stuff just starts showing up. So that's how we would do a referral or a newly met. Again, we'd assess whether or not there was value there before we went and spent hundreds of dollars. Do that. Then the last part is if you're buying a list or that type of thing, but stick with it 90 days. So the ditty behind positive activity goes, positive activity. Now we're yoga people too. So It's a practice of getting your mindset right in an area of positivity, which takes you, and this is where we talked about the creative thought, takes you to a place of solution providing, divergent thinking, creativity, which leads to what? Productivity. And that the whole process, the activity of doing these things, of doing them daily, right, begets activity. So all of a sudden you get on a roll, and then and that's what's happening to us right now. This company went public in July of 21. No, was it 22? No, it was 21. $17 by January of 22. They just, something happened. So we stayed with them because they still had a budget for us. They didn't completely go away. And so, but when we realized it was done, okay, team, time to redo, and let's get out. Let's find out who. Let's start. Well, as they scatter, let's make sure we get them.
Stay connected.
Wherever they're going, stay with them. So we had a whole list, and then we and what we're experiencing now are the results of that. Like business is real. We're starting to get as busy as we were back then, and we have the infrastructure for it. We built the infrastructure with the business that we had. So we decided not to change the infrastructure because we were confident we were going to build back the business because our process works.
Well, you've talked, you mentioned process a number of times, and I'm curious. And, so we talked a little bit about the process of maybe the first meeting. And I kind of think about, a sales process. There's the beginning, right? Getting kind of the meeting the client, finding the client, the prospecting piece. There is the process of working on a deal. And then there's maybe you want a deal and there's some process that happens in the back. So in my mind, I've always kind of created like three silos, that it's all one giant process, but I sometimes get my mindset sort of set in the pre, the current, and the post deal process. And that's just my own process. But I'm curious, you mentioned stick with your process. I have a couple questions around that. Number one, how do you maybe document your process or kind of ensure that you're following the process? Is it just in Neil's head, or do you have it mapped out for other people to see?
We have team meetings every Tuesday and Thursday, and we discuss current people that we're targeting, and then people that are now moved into queue because we've gotten meetings and we're starting to do sampling. And we every day, every week, we just talk about it. We're not managing a huge organization.
Right.
We're managing a piece of an organization that, we lost one. If we picked up 25 that can match that volume, we'd be the happiest people on the planet, right? So it all depends on your numbers. Like how many numbers, what are you following up on? How many, if you need 1,000 new clients, that's another kettle of fish, I think.
When you're following a process, how do you going back, you made this statement, you stick with it. What do you do, or what do you recommend in terms of evaluating that process along the way? Because let's say there's something that's not quite working out. Maybe the market has changed in some way and your process needs to be tweaked. How do you go about reevaluating your process periodically?
We've got a process that our process, it's not perfect and it's been amended, but the basic steps have stood the test of time.
Yeah,
I did it when I built the food business. I did it when I built, and it's really just fundamentals. So what I say to people all the time, and what my keynote's going to be on the book is, this is what you need to do before you start chasing the new shiny red toy, right? If you act so as an example, the simple things that are in the book are the importance of a proper greeting. Stop sending emails like they're texts. There should be an opening, body, and a closing. You should be pleased and thank you. You should do these things. I'm doing shoulds here, but I'm thinking these aren't avoidable in my world.
Right.
Please do not show up late to a Zoom meeting or heaven forbid, an in-person meeting that somebody has granted you. What do you know about your industry other than what your company does? If a client comes to you and asks you for something that you don't offer, do you know where to get it? These are things learned in a restaurant and hospitality thing. That's what we call peripheral knowledge in the hospitality business. So I'm thinking there's a whole bunch of fundamentals that you got to have. We could say everything. I grew up here with Tom Brady, or at least the last 20, well, at least before, for 20 years he was here. It wasn't all him.
Right.
Matter of fact, Adam Vinatieri had to kick at least two field goals to win Super Bowls, right? It wasn't just Tom. Where's the block? And I always call it, this is not that Adam Vinatieri is a blocking and tackling guy, but certainly but where's the guard? Where's the tackle? Where are those components to your gig? Because those are the things that I think people, I just got a great note yesterday. So a friend of mine died last summer and, it was about this time last year. So this year we had a get together at his house with his son there. And his son saw that I had written a book on LinkedIn. So I just mentioned it, and he said, "Yeah, I'd love to get a copy." So the next day, I signed a copy and I brought one over to him, and he was thrilled and whatnot. So I checked in with him yesterday or the day before, and he said, "I read it, I loved it, and it's things like this is what you're talking about, showing up with a book that you told me you were going to bring, and then by the way, following up to make sure I see how I liked it. No complex marketing theories." You do not have to go to the Harvard School of Business to learn that. It's just about being hospitable, being nice, doing what you say you're going to do. So I think we get all caught up. I think I've seen it all throughout my years and it's also the people that are on the lower part of the stack rankings are worried about these things. Make more sales calls. Be nicer. Be creative. Right. So I just can't harp on that enough because, that was, Guy wrote a fantastic article on LinkedIn about it. And it's just that we're chasing the new shiny red toy again. Yeah. And then, so.
I think it's, I don't know, maybe call it human nature, but oftentimes, I see people that are looking for the next best thing or the way to kind of circumvent hard work. Shortcuts. And, that's the one thing that I've always loved about sales is if you do the basics really, really well, repeatable, consistent, it's not going to guarantee success. There's still some things that you need to deal with in a complex sale, but man, is that a good foundation. And I've known some number one reps who you would sit down with them and you would say, I would not have expected that they were a number one rep. But when you work with them, you see things like they go to a meeting, every single meeting, they reconfirm what the business problem was, what the issue was. They ask if anything has changed. They ask if the agenda still meets what they wanted to talk about. And they do that consistently. And then they uncover that, things have changed. You're not going to go waste a whole hour in a meeting versus I've seen a lot of reps that I've been on ride-alongs with. They don't do it. They jump right into their presentation. We get halfway into it. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I've got a new CIO. Just
let me tell you exactly. Let me tell you everything I know.
Yeah.
Right. So we were going down to Lori, my wife, and I had a in-person appointment in Princeton, New Jersey last Wednesday, 6 hours from here. You want me? I'm coming. Right. You're going to see us. It was like Christmas. I get up and was like, oh my God, adrenaline going and whatnot. So we got down there and we're talking about, what is it we should say? Lori's asked me, what do we talk about? What do we do? I said, no, we don't talk. We let them talk. We ask questions. We'll offer up, here we are, yada, 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 give them some broad stuff, but no. We want to hear from them. 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in that proportion. And then once the deal is done, shut your mouth.
Great advice. Well, Neil, as we wrap up here, your book is called Bar Tips, Everything I Needed to Know in Sales I Learned Behind the Bar. So if definitely go pick up his book. Is there anything else you wanted to highlight from the book that we hadn't touched on?
No, I think we touched on it pretty good. I think I hammered away pretty good on it. But that's just the way. The bottom line is that's the way I think. That's the way I speak, and I think it's it's done us well.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Neil, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming on the High Tech Freedom podcast. And to the listeners out there, until next week, make this your best week ever. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks again for joining us today. To get more sales and real estate tips, you can subscribe to our newsletter at hightechfreedom.com. You can also join our private Facebook and LinkedIn group that is exclusively for sales professionals. If you found a nugget of good information in the podcast, please subscribe, give us a positive rating, and write a review. If there is a topic that you would like us to cover in the future, please send us a note through our website at hightechfreedom.com. Until next week, make this your best week ever.